So, a couple months ago, I got a great gift from one of the members of the coverkillernation. So, Kristian, if you're out there, thanks again. This is Skyharbor. This is Guiding Lights. I'm sure a lot of you know this album, either that or perhaps investigated it after we did the unboxing video for this. However, it's time for us to talk about this album, considering it is Fan Appreciation Week. Now, this is a band that has roots in India. However, their singer on this album is Daniel Tompkins, who, of course, did some work with Tesseract. He was the vocalist for the one album and also for their most recent disc, Polaris. So, yeah, he's kind of been around a little bit. But during his time in Skyharbor, he was on their first disc doing some more of a guest level, but he did all of the vocals here on Guiding Lights. And if you are used to what he's done with one in Polaris, if you heard his cleans, then you're going to be very used to what you hear on Skyharbor, because this is a very clean-centered album. This is one where those vocals do not traditionally really go above any sort of cleanliness. There's not a whole lot of dirt that you get with this. This is instead meant to be a little bit more ambient, a little bit more progressive rock or progressive metal, a little bit more alternative. It has a lot of spacey atmosphere to it, which is absolutely one of the keynote strengths that this album does possess, is that it does have a lot of confidence in its composition. Now, Daniel may not be with the band anymore, but they are expecting to release a third album, hopefully within the next year or so. There's been a couple of singles that have already dropped from it, so it's one to certainly investigate to see what the future may hold for these guys. But the strength of their composition is what has made Guiding Lights kind of an album that should have a little bit of a legend behind it of being kind of criminally underrated. This is 10 tracks, nearly 70 minutes of music that does not really, it doesn't try to rush. It really does not try to rush, and it's another one of its strengths. The fact that they have so much confidence in their composition that they just allow these tracks to sort of grow organically gives it a strong sense of personality, not to mention also a strong sense of relief. You listen to this and you don't feel overtly stressed by what is cascading around you. It's instead something that really is very sort of pleasing. And I think some people will have some questions about whether or not it's metal based around that idea. Well, it's metal. Just shut up. There's absolutely no need for debate. And if you want to, lob in that D word, that gent word, you can do that if you want, but you're going to be, for the most part, very wrong. This is an album that features some of the best material, perhaps, that the genre has to offer in the eyes of some. Some have said that the last 4 tracks on this album, Patience, Guiding Lights, Kaikoma, and The Constant, are the best that the genre has had to offer in a while. And that's about 25 minutes in length, considering, actually more than that, closer to 30 to 32 minutes in length, based off of Guiding Lights and The Constant, both being close to eclipsing the 10-minute mark in length. And you might think that's pretty lengthy for a band that's sort of chill. Is it one that, involves a lot of motion and a lot of change? Absolutely it does. Even though you're not getting, musical ideas at 10,000, notes a minute, this is instead one that sort of takes a very chill pace whenever it comes to that. It still has enough motion in order to really provide a true experience. Now, I disagree with those that say that those 4 songs are the best the genre has to offer. I think they're being a little alarmist about that. But Guiding Lights alone is a true highlight point on this album. More than 9 minutes in length, and a very circular style song that starts off with a similar riff at the beginning and then brings it back home with that at the end in order to give it a true sort of year effect. Best way that I like to say that songs like this really represent it is the months or the seasons of the year. So you start off with a winter, and then you eventually recirculate around into a winter. Now, while the tone and the overall themology doesn't match that, it's one that still, with that circular environment, really provides for a sort of a good example point or a good comparison point. But this track, it has one of the most addicting riffs that I've ever heard, and it's one that also makes me think a little bit of the Deftones whenever it comes to the vocals that cascade sort of over top of the music that is very softly sort of emanating in the background for the first portion of this song. And just how, whenever it finally does sort of ramp up a little bit in tone or in harshness, they just rise above like a phoenix from the ashes. It reminds me a lot of Chino from the Deftones, and just how those vocals sort of cascade alongside of the music and sort of acts as its own instrument along the way. Really not necessarily being restricted to just words, but instead just every single tone that you hear, whether it be just the simple O or a moan, has its own unique, real necessity within this track. It sort of pushes the composition even further than it already is going. So it's a nice coupling point. This track is hard to stop listening to. So I don't know how these folks are getting to the last two songs. They must have better willpower than I do in some cases, because I can get stuck listening to this track 4 or 5 different times and easily kill off an hour. Yeah, this thing hasn't left my car in 2 months, so long drives are a must. But either way, this was an album that was also crowdfunded in order for it to be into existence. And Evolution, the second track off of this album, which has a little bit of a heavier edge to it, was provided during the crowdfunding campaign, which was a success within 1 month of it being initialized. And this is an album that really does throw a little bit of those harder moments within it, and that's the reason why that metal tag should stick, and better to stick, because it is metal. But I like the fact that they're able to really juxtapose a nice balance between the heaviness and some of that softer, more airy, more atmospheric portion, while also blending in a little bit of electronics. You can hear that at the end of a track such as Halogen, and it's one that might seem a little bit off-putting, but it's instead one that does drive the composition forward. It's almost like it's telling a sonic story leading into New Devil, and I really like the fact that it does that. Overall, this is a disc that's hard to put down, which is one of its strengths. If I'd reviewed this in 2014, there's a good chance it would have ended up on the top 50 list. Of course, I don't think I did a top 50 list in 2014. I just think it was still top 35. But either way, I think based off of the relative strength of this album, it would have probably made that as well. My thought is probably somewhere within the 20s. This is an album that's probably an 88 or 89 out of 100. It's just got a lot to offer a listener. It's a chill out, kind of relaxed listen. It's not one that really forces you to sit down and imagine or, examine things very hard. This is something that's instead going to cause you to maybe sit down and imagine or examine some of the elements of the reality that surrounds you. It's one that at times can have some repetitive theme. And that's really only going to be noticed by somebody that has a short attention span. Somebody who's jumping from thought to thought all the time and doesn't really take the time to stop and sort of enjoy that which is right in front of them and what is present right there within their ears. So this is a disc that is very calming, very soothing, and it's just very well executed. It's a shame that Daniel has left the band, considering he seemed like such a perfect fit for Skyharbor, but I'm excited to see what they're able to do with their brand new vocalist on their third album, and that's going to be one that we're going to tackle right around whenever it comes out. But I'm going to leave a link to Guiding Lights, the self-titled song, in the description box below for you to check out. And if you've never heard of this band, go and check that out, and then tell me what you think in the comments below. If you know of this band, praise them or hate them, whichever your opinion is, do that in the comments below as well. Kristian, once again, thank you very much for this fantastic gift, man. It's going right back in my car. Sorry, this isn't staying up here. I got places to go today, so I'm going to listen to it again. Yeah, I'm CoverKillerNation. You guys should really check these guys out. Take care.